I was in the kitchen, scrubbing a pan, when my husband's phone lit up with a text from his mom. "You need to decide right now. It's her or me." My hands froze, soap suds dripping onto the counter. I wanted to believe I misread it, but there it was, clear as day. This is a story of love, control, and the painful choices we never think we'll have to make. Before we get into the story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The first time I met Adam's mom, Diane, I could tell she didn't like me. She wasn't outright rude, not in a way you could call out, but there was something about her smile, like she was holding it in place just for show. Her eyes scanned me the way someone might check a price tag, calculating whether I was worth it. Adam had prepped me beforehand, saying, "She's just protective." But that wasn't the right word. Protective moms worried about their kids' safety. Diane wasn't worried. She was judging. Dinner at their house was awkward. His dad, Tom, was nice enough, quiet mostly, but Diane controlled the conversation. And when she finally acknowledged me, it was to bring up Adam's ex. "Oh, you know, Lauren used to make the best chicken parmesan," she said, passing the salad bowl to Adam. "She had this way of seasoning it, just perfect." Adam glanced at me, his fork pausing over his plate. "Mom." "What?" Diane shrugged, all innocence. "I just meant she was a great cook. Didn't she just love cooking for you?" Adam let out a breath, clearly uncomfortable. I forced a smile. "That's nice. I'll have to try making it sometime." Diane's lips curved up, but not in a friendly way. "Oh honey, cooking's not for everyone." It took everything in me to stay polite. I wasn't some overly sensitive girl who couldn't handle a little sass, but there was something pointed about the way she said it, like I was already failing some test I didn't even know I was taking. Later in the car, Adam tried to reassure me. "She just needs time," he said. "She'll warm up to you." I didn't argue. I wanted to believe him. But as time went on, Diane's warming up looked a lot like her freezing me out. Things escalated after Adam and I got engaged. That's when Diane's polite hostility turned into full-on interference. Every time we made a wedding decision, she had thoughts. "The country club?" she repeated when Adam told her the venue we picked. "Oh, I don't know, that's kind of modern for a wedding, don't you think?" Adam sighed. "Mom, it's what we want." She tilted her head. "I just think you'll regret it later. You know, Lauren's wedding was." "Mom." His voice was firmer now. "Drop it." She dropped it. But not really. A week later, she sent me a text. "Diane, hey sweetheart. Just a thought, have you considered St. Mark's Church instead?" So classic and timeless. I stared at my phone. She wasn't asking. She was suggesting in that way that wasn't really a suggestion. I showed Adam. He groaned. "I'll talk to her." And on it went. "The dress? You know, strapless is a bit bold for a wedding." "The guest list? Oh, you're inviting them? Ha. The menu? Well, I wouldn't choose that, but if you're sure." I tried to be patient. I tried to remind myself that this was her only son, and maybe she was struggling with letting go. But then, 2 weeks before the wedding, she pulled me aside at a family dinner and whispered, "I just don't want Adam making a mistake." That was it. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about wedding venues or menus. She wasn't afraid Adam would regret a decision. She was afraid he would regret me. And she wasn't going to stop. I wanted to believe things would get better after the wedding. I thought maybe, once we were officially married, Diane would finally accept that I wasn't going anywhere. I was wrong. If anything, she ramped up her efforts. She called Adam constantly, usually under the guise of needing help with something trivial. "Oh Adam, the Wi-Fi isn't working again, and I know you're the only one who can fix it." Or, "Sweetie, the faucet is making this weird noise, do you think you could swing by after work?" At first, I let it slide. It's his mom, right? She just wants to see him. But after the third time in a week, I started noticing a pattern. It was never a real emergency. And it was always during our time together. One Saturday, we had plans to go hiking. Literally, as we were putting on our shoes, his phone rang. "Hey Mom." He listened for a second, rubbing his forehead. "No, we were just heading out." A pause. "Can it wait until tomorrow?" I could hear her voice through the phone, high-pitched and wounded. Oh. No, it's fine. I don't know, maybe call the neighbor, if they're even home. Adam sighed. All right. I'll be there soon. After he hung up, he glanced at me, guilty. I'm really sorry. She sounds stressed. I swallowed down my frustration. Adam, she always sounds stressed. He hesitated. I know. I don't want her to feel like I'm ignoring her. I wanted to say, but it's okay if she ignores me? Instead, I forced a smile and said go. We'll hike next weekend. We didn't. Then there were the drop-ins. Diane had this habit of stopping by unannounced, and every time, she found something to criticize. Oh, I see you've rearranged the living room, she said once, stepping inside and glancing around. Interesting choice. I guess that works, if you like the crowded look. Or, are these towels folded this way on purpose? She chuckled, like it was a joke, but we both knew it wasn't. The worst part was how Adam reacted. He'd roll his eyes when she left, muttering, she's just being her, like that made it okay. But it wasn't okay. Because every time she cut me down, he said nothing. And every time he let it slide, I felt myself sliding too, further and further into resentment. Then came Thanksgiving. Diane insisted on hosting. Fine. I wasn't going to fight her on that. But when I offered to bring a dish, she smiled and said, oh honey, let's leave the cooking to the experts. I clenched my jaw. I can cook, Diane. She laughed, waving a hand. Of course, sweetie. I just wouldn't want you to stress yourself. I wanted to snap back, but Adam gave me a look, don't start something. So I let it go. I wish I hadn't. That night, she served Adam's favorite casserole. Except it wasn't his favorite. He hated it. I knew that because I was his wife, and I actually listened when he talked about things he liked and didn't like. But he took a bite anyway, smiling at her like a good son. And that was the moment I saw it, really saw it. She didn't just want to be his mother. She wanted to be the most important woman in his life. And Adam? He was too afraid to disappoint her. I sat there, barely touching my plate, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Because if this was how it was going to be forever, I wasn't sure I could do it. I told myself things would settle down eventually. That Adam would start to see what I saw. That Diane would realize she couldn't control him forever. But then we started house hunting. And everything got worse. It was supposed to be exciting. Adam and I had spent hours scrolling through listings, imagining our future in different neighborhoods. We wanted something with a backyard, maybe a fixer-upper we could make our own. But the second Diane found out, she threw a fit. Why would you move? She demanded over dinner one night. You have a perfectly fine place near me. Adam shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mom, we just want something bigger. A place to grow into. She scoffed. Grow into? You don't have kids. I set my fork down, taking a deep breath. We will someday. Her eyes flickered to me, sharp. Well, I just think it's irresponsible to take on a bigger mortgage right now. The economy is so unpredictable. I opened my mouth to argue, but Adam beat me to it. Mom, we've thought it through. We'll be fine. She exhaled dramatically, shaking her head like we were two clueless children making a huge mistake. I just don't want you two struggling. Maybe wait a few years. Adam didn't say anything. And just like that, the seed was planted. After that, Diane started chipping away at Adam's confidence. Are you sure you can handle a bigger house? She'd ask on the phone. There are so many hidden costs, repairs, property taxes. Or, it's just, you've always been a little impulsive, Adam. Remember that time in college when you bought that motorcycle and regretted it? Bit by bit, she made him question himself. And it worked. One night, after another long call with her, Adam sank onto the couch, rubbing his temples. Maybe we should wait, he muttered. I stared at him. Wait? Adam, we already got pre-approved for a loan. I know, but, he exhaled. Maybe my mom's right. What if this is too big of a step? I clenched my fists. Do you think that, or did she put that in your head? His jaw tightened. Why does it have to be one or the other? I let out a humorless laugh. Because it always is, Adam. She says jump, and you ask how high. His face darkened. That's not fair. I shook my head, my chest tight. No. What's not fair is that every time we make a decision, she finds a way to control it. And you let her. He looked away, staring at the floor. That was the moment I knew he felt it too. But knowing it and doing something about it were two very different things. From that night on, something shifted between us. Adam was quieter, more withdrawn. He wasn't laughing as much, wasn't as present. It was like he was stuck, torn between me and his mother, trying to keep both of us happy but failing at both. And I was exhausted. I didn't want to be in a marriage where I had to compete for my husband's loyalty. But that's exactly what it felt like. Then one night, everything exploded. Adam had just gotten off another call with Diane. His shoulders were tense, his face pale. I didn't even need to ask, I already knew she had been whispering doubts in his ear again. I folded my arms. So? What's this one about? He hesitated. She thinks we should slow down. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course she does. Adam sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I just think. No, Adam. What do you think? I cut him off. Forget her for a second. What do you want? His mouth opened, then closed. He looked so lost, like he didn't know how to answer that without upsetting someone. And that was when I realized, I could fight for our marriage all I wanted, but if Adam couldn't fight for it too? We were doomed. It happened on a Tuesday. A completely ordinary day, until it wasn't. Adam had been distant all morning, barely speaking over breakfast. I tried not to take it personally, but deep down I knew. Something was wrong. I wanted to ask, but I also didn't want to hear the answer. So I let it go. That evening, I was cleaning up the kitchen when Adam's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then at me. It's my mom, he muttered. I kept scrubbing the plate in my hands. Of course it is. He hesitated, then walked out to the balcony to take the call. I listened to the muffled hum of his voice, trying not to care. Trying not to feel that familiar ache in my chest. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. By the time he stepped back inside, his face was pale, his hands clenched into fists. I dried my hands. What? Adam swallowed hard. She wants to talk to you. I stared at him. What? He held out the phone. Just, please. I should have said no. Should have walked away. But I didn't. I took the phone. Diane's voice came through, eerily calm. I'm just going to be honest with you, she said. I don't think you're right for Adam. And if he stays with you, he'll regret it. I gripped the phone tighter. Excuse me. She sighed, like she was tired of having to spell it out for me. I'm saying he needs to choose. You or me. The room spun. I turned to Adam, heart pounding. Did you know she was going to say this? He didn't answer. And that silence? It broke something in me. I held the phone against my ear, but Diane had gone quiet. She had said her piece, and now she was waiting. Waiting for me to break. Waiting for Adam to speak. Waiting for him to decide. I slowly lowered the phone and placed it on the counter. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I turned to Adam. Say something. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. I don't know. That was it. That was my answer. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It wasn't a gasp or a sob, just a quiet, tired exhale. The kind that comes when you finally understand. I reached for my coat. Where are you going? Adam's voice cracked. I didn't even look at him. I need some air. I walked out before he could stop me. I drove aimlessly for hours, the city lights blurring past me. I wasn't crying. Not yet. I just felt empty. Like I had spent so much energy fighting for something that was never really mine to begin with. Because if Adam wanted to choose me, wouldn't he have done it already? I pulled into a quiet parking lot and turned off the engine, resting my forehead against the steering wheel. I thought about every moment, every compromise, every time I had swallowed my pride and tried to be understanding. And for what? For a man who couldn't even say my name when it mattered? My phone buzzed. For a second, I thought about ignoring it. But something in me, maybe the smallest, most desperate part, reached for it anyway. It was Adam. I told her no. I chose you. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering. Relief crashed over me, but it wasn't just relief. It was something else. A question. Was it too late? When I got home, Adam was waiting in the living room, his head in his hands. The second I walked in, he looked up. His eyes were red. "I'm sorry," he said. And for the first time, I believed him. Because for once, Diane wasn't standing between us. He had made a choice. Me. Diane didn't speak to us for months. Maybe she thought we'd break. Maybe she hoped. But we didn't. Because love isn't just about choosing someone once. It's about choosing them over and over again, even when it's hard. And that's exactly what Adam did.